The opinions expressed on the following audio program are solely those of the host and the guests. Burner Podcast is an independently produced, not-for-profit show and is not associated with the Burning Man organization or its subsidiaries. The views expressed are not representative of the entire Burning Man community and are presented here for entertainment purposes only. In short, calm the fuck down. It's just a podcast.
Hey, it's episode number 46, and it is 305 days till the man burns as of this recording. Man, I still can't figure out how it is that it takes this much longer to recover after YOUtopia than it does the burn. I know I bitched about this in the last intro, but seriously, what the fuck? I'm just now starting to feel like I'm kind of getting back to normal. And normal is a strong word. But this week, the Burner Podcast team is prepping for Art San Diego. It's an annual arts event here and maker stuff, where Cabina Exuro, our project that we took to the burn, is going to be displayed. In part, at least. We're not going to build the whole interior recording booth. It's going to be just the exterior exoskeleton, the icosahedral something, that shape that I can never remember how to pronounce. Chief Playa Scientist Ramiro has built a couple of benches to go around it, and then inside there's going to be some dust, and not just the dust that's falling off the exo, but like dust in a jar or something. I'm not sure. There will be some artifacts from the burn as a part of the project, and there will be a book of my photography documenting the journey of Cabina Exuro from build to burn. And if you attended YOUtopia, you might have noticed that we never actually finished it out there. It sat lonely by a bridge, half complete. My friend Sharon described it as an unlit, dark rape box. That's nice. So I'm hoping to have all the bits and pieces together so that our next episode of Burner Podcast will be the full Cabina Exuro story from beginning to end, and it'll include recordings from the burn and all that jazz. So anyway, let's get to today's show. It hasn't actually been a while, like not that long, but I felt like it had been a while since I'd done a straight one-on-one interview. And listener, hopefully you can't actually tell the difference, but the one-on-one interviews are way easier for me. And like sometimes they're just kind of more therapeutic. It's just me and one other person, and we just kind of chat. When I'm juggling multiple people, I have to keep track of various timelines and watch the body language of more than one person in order to gauge how far I can push a question or a delicate subject matter. There is an art to this, I swear. We joke a lot. You know, I mean, it is mostly me just fucking off with my friends, but there is a little bit of finesse that goes into it, I swear. If you ever want to hear me squirm, you can check out Lovers Without Borders. That's episode number 29 of this show, where I had two amazing guests on, Amanda Joy and Greg Young, but we were handling a very delicate subject, that of consensual non-monogamy. And I remember sitting there thinking, oh, I'm not doing so well on this one. That episode was an example of a topic that required a great deal of finesse. And we were, looking back now, attempting to cover too broad a subject, which made it difficult to honor the potential sensitivities that were being touched on with very broad brushstrokes. It's hard to describe, but anyway, that was a tough one, and one-on-one interviews are easier. Just we're working on a few different shows right now, and I was just in the mood to sit down with someone who I could really just feel comfortable sitting down with, especially after the more challenging re-entry from YOUtopia that I've had this year. John Ray has been on our list since the very inception of this show. And it just happened that we went through a cornucopia of guests, and we'd gone through some of those subjects already. And we transitioned to more theme-based roundtable type shows. And when you hear the following chat, you'll understand why. Like, some of the stuff has been covered, but now we're getting it from a different angle. But it is people like John that are instrumental to how a community like ours is built. And the story that you're about to hear is a story of San Diego mostly. But as with many of our stories, simply because San Diego is where our show is based, by the way, but it could be any city. This is how community is built. People show up and they bring their gifts, and John's gift is the ability to get shit done. He has been an important leader in the San Diego community since its golden age. We're going to hear all about the earliest days of YOUtopia as John and Natural, whose interview you can hear, by the way, is episode number 10. You're going to hear him referenced multiple times on this episode. They work together along with many other important, amazing people in San Diego to elevate our local DCOM into the official, amazing regional that it is now. You've also heard us speak so much about Colab, and we're going to get more behind-the-scenes information about the development of our little burner home here in San Diego. We'll, of course, talk about this amazing... God, I've said amazing a lot in this intro, I feel like. We're also going to talk about this fantastic YOUtopia that just passed, which I'm still recovering from, where John was asked to sit back in the captain's chair again as co-lead. There's be like a joke here or something. I keep trying to get out, but they keep pulling me back in. San Diego's community exists in no small part thanks to the efforts of John Ray. So let's get into his story. Today's show is entitled The Road to YOUtopia. It's kind of like a double meaning in that name, by the way, because like you'll hear it when you get into the, he's building his own YOUtopia with like family and community and all that shit, not just YOUtopia. You know what? Maybe you'll catch it. It's not a big deal. Don't worry about it. I go by Mr. Arash, even though nobody calls me Mr. Welcome to Burner Podcast.
On the first part of the journey, I was looking at all the life. There were plants and birds and rocks and things. There was sand and hills and rain. The first thing I met was the fly with the balls and the sky with no clouds. The heat was hot and the ground was dry, but the air was full of sound. I've been through the desert on a horse with no name. It felt good to be out of the rain. In the desert, you can't remember your name, 'cause there ain't no one for to give you no name.
Hey, why don't we go get dinner before or something? I'm like, no, I don't want to talk to you. I mean, I don't want to know what's going on. Because there's another show that I co-host, and I'm like on that one, while we're setting up the mics and stuff, sometimes the guest and my creative partner, they'll start chopping it up about like production techniques and stuff like that. And I just get up and I'm like, shut up, both of you. Yeah. I don't want to re-go through all this, and it sounds super not genuine.
Save it for the show.
Yeah. Well, here. Well, thanks for bringing beers.
Yeah, cheers.
I like to get the sound of the clang recorded. I was talking to who was it? It was like a Uber driver, I think, that asked me the other day, were you born? Are you from San Diego? And I said, born and raised. And he's like, wow, I've been doing this job for 2 years, and I've never heard somebody say that before.
Oh, really?
It's a trip.
Yeah, you guys are pretty rare.
Yeah.
I do a lot of, I meet a lot of people in their homes because of my business. I go out and give bids on painting. And every once in a while, I'll come across somebody who's like born and raised, but it's probably only one out of every 20 or 30 or something like that.
Yeah.
And I ask pretty much everybody like where they're from and all that.
That's part of the spiel to like get them comfortable.
Yeah, just to like get to know people or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, it's part of the small talk.
Yeah.
Where are you from? What do you do for work? You know, how long you lived here in this house?
Where are you from originally?
Seattle.
Seattle? How long were you out there? When did you move out to San Diego?
I lived in Seattle till 2002, and then I moved to Phoenix until 2006. And then on Halloween Day, Oh, I didn't even realize that. So it's like my 10-year anniversary.
Oh, wow.
Halloween of 2006 is when I moved here.
Happy decade in San Diego.
Yeah, a decade and a day.
What brought you out here?
Phoenix. I hated Phoenix. It was...
The city of Phoenix, not the person.
Yeah, the city of Phoenix. There's no culture, or I shouldn't say that, but...
well, what took you to Phoenix to begin with?
I was just wanting to get out of Seattle and explore the world a little bit. I didn't want to just like spend the rest of my life in the city that I grew up in. So I didn't really have anything against Seattle aside from the rain. Yeah. But I wanted to get away from all of that rain, basically. And the exact opposite that I could think of was Phoenix. Yeah. So I was dating a girl at the time, and she wanted to go to Phoenix. I was kind of drawn more towards San Diego, but because she had a sister in Phoenix, we just decided to go there together. So lived there for like 4 years.
It's always so nuts to me. I hear stories, especially as a San Diegan, you hear that story a lot of like people that are just living somewhere that they want to move from. Yeah. So they kind of throw a dart at the dartboard and end up in San Diego.
That's kind of what happened. Yeah.
But you ended up in Phoenix.
I ended up in Phoenix. Yeah. It was cool. I made some good friends out there and whatever, but I just love San Diego, and I love the weather and the culture, and my grandparents lived here in Coronado when I was a little kid. So just like
so you had a lot of
beach
good
culture and everything. Yeah. So I just came out, and my sister actually moved here like a year or two before I did. So that made it pretty easy as well, since I had family so close. And so I just packed up and came out one day.
Domino immigration pattern. What did you do when you moved out here?
I started painting.
Okay.
I started painting. I started my business. It took about half a year to get my actual license and everything. So I just kind of did like small jobs here and there, like I'd paint a bedroom or whatever. And was
painting something you were doing in Phoenix as well?
No, not really. I guess the last few months that I was there, I was, because I got my real estate license and was doing real estate right when the crash happened. Like all of the entire market just pretty much froze.
All right.
So there was nothing going on for like the last like 6 months or so that I was in Phoenix as far as real estate like transactions go. So I was just painting houses on the side and didn't really have any roots or anything in Phoenix. So it just made sense to pick up and come out here.
Yeah. And then why painting?
Well, when I was a freshman in college, I was hired to run one of those student painting franchises. And so I did that for like 5 years. And I just learned the painting business really well doing that. And so I kind of fell back on it when the real estate thing wasn't really going anywhere in Phoenix. But then I, decided to take it seriously and start a real business. And so I started Paint Green and just like, wrote my business plan on Christmas Day, actually. And rather than going home for Christmas and see my family, I just stayed in San Diego that first Christmas and spent the whole day in my computer just typing out everything. And then the business has just grown from there. Yeah.
So so when I say like, owning a business, like, are you attracted to actually like the physical action of it as well? Or was it like a business that you were like, I can run this business, I can put this together, this is background of which I understand?
A little bit of both. It's definitely like, it kind of like gets you into like a Zen mode or something when you're painting, because you have like a huge wall in front of you and you don't have to think about anything. You don't have to do anything other than just move your arms and get the paint on the wall. Yeah. So there's a lot of, there was some attraction for me with the physical aspect of it, but I also realized that, that I had enough business sense to be able to like make a go at it, making a real company. So that was always my goal from the beginning, was to like, get at least a couple of crews going and stuff like that.
And so Paint Green is, it sounds like it's environmentally friendly. I'm assuming that was part of the business plan.
Yeah. We try to do everything we can. It's to be eco-friendly. Like we, instead of using a whole bunch of plastic, we use canvas drop cloths. We drive around little smart cars, because they get good gas mileage and, they turn a lot of heads as well. Yeah. We use non-toxic paint, But really, the best way to be eco-friendly as a painter is to just do a really high-quality job.
Right.
So we're all about like making sure that we're getting the best quality we can, the best longevity of the paint job.
Yeah, because it's the reason it's interesting to me is painting. You've always had like a very calm energy. Like every time I've been around you, it's like
I've told that a lot.
Yeah. And so even like painting, it's like one of those, I don't remember, there's like some long story that I'm not going to tell right now, but like it's like the master says to the student, you know, show me how you can reach enlightenment. And like the student sits down and like gets into like lotus position or something and like starts to meditate. But like the point of the story is that it's sort of any repetitive action. So even like painting to me like feels like it'd be like a very Zen meditative kind of experience. And I wonder with your personality, like if it was something that you were attracted to, you know, prior, like you were always kind of like more of a calm person and you're attracted to the Zen of this, or did this kind of contribute to your Zen?
Yeah, I don't know. Probably both. I do like, I mean, painting is one of those things where you could spend 10 hours on a wall to get it absolutely perfect, or you can get it like 95% of the way perfect in 20 minutes.
Huh.
You know, so there's definitely a Zen aspect to it of being able to, first of all, like understand the client and be able to balance like how much they want to pay versus how perfect it needs to be. But it's definitely one of those things that you can like really zone in on and like, you know, just spend your time like getting things to be absolutely dialed in and perfect.
Yeah. So, so when you moved out here, were you alone or were you still with a girlfriend?
Yeah, I was still with a girlfriend.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And go ahead.
For about like 6 months or so, I think, maybe a year.
And then San Diego ended it.
Well, she was training to be a commercial pilot, and she came out to San Diego to finish off her training. And then when she got her training, then she got a good job working on an airline on the East Coast.
Okay.
And so I was like, well, I kind of like San Diego. And she's like, well, I kind of have to do my career thing. So, yeah, that's
very amicable.
Yeah, it was actually. Yeah, we're still good friends.
Yeah, that's cool. So, at what point did the burner community enter your life?
2001.
Okay. It's here in San Diego.
Nope. It was up in Seattle.
Okay.
It was right before I moved away, actually.
Oh, okay.
Like maybe half a year before I moved.
So that's, let's see here. So you've been in San Diego 10 years. Phoenix for how long?
4 years.
So you got into the burner community about 16, 17 years ago? What is that?
Well, 2001, that's 15.
15 years ago, yeah.
Yeah, 15 years ago.
I don't do math. I'm an artist.
Yeah, 2001, my buddy DM and I, he just asked me like 2 weeks before Burning Man. He's like, hey, have you ever heard of this thing called Burning Man? And I had read a couple articles about it or whatever. And so I kind of heard of it and it sounded fun. And so we ended up driving down together. And
what about it sounded fun?
I think I was drawn to the freedom of expression that it seemed like everybody had. And of course, like there was the allure of like, there's a giant man and they burn it and it's like this crazy whatever happens out there. So it sounded really fun for all of that, but it also, I really liked the openness and the freedom of expression that it seemed like everybody who went had that I had talked to about it.
Does Seattle have a pretty strong burner community at that time?
Yeah. DM came back and he kind of became an organizer of events and things up there. He helped found the Northwest regional event called Critical Massive. And he did that after we got back that first year. He started organizing events and doing all that. And that was when I moved away. So I wasn't really a part of like the organization of stuff up there. But he was definitely like my mentor, I guess you could say, with the stuff that I've done here in San Diego.
I was going to say that. So you had, you had some experience. You had a cord connected to Burning Man, Oregon, an early stage.
Yeah.
So you had already moved away to Phoenix or San Diego by the time he was building Critical Massive over there.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly when Critical Massive started, but I think it was when I was still living in Phoenix.
Okay. And then so what about Phoenix? Is there a burner community there that you were connected to?
Sort of, not very deeply. I went to the Phoenix regional called Toast, I think. And it was maybe like 100 people. And it was cool. We had a good time, but
they get to be called a regional with 100 people?
I don't know if they had an official regional status or if it was just what it was. But
bunch of hippies in the desert.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was pretty cool, but I was just in a different phase in my life. I wasn't very connected to the Burning Man world when I was living in Phoenix.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering, because there's always people that like go to Burning Man and then go back to like their day-to-day lives, and then there's like those of us who just like completely dive headfirst into the community, and that becomes our lives.
Yeah, totally.
And in Phoenix, there was a community, but you weren't quite in that headspace, is what you're saying.
Yeah, because I'd only been to Burning Man like once before I moved away to Phoenix.
What year was it?
It was 2002 that I moved to Phoenix.
No, I'm sorry. What year was Burning Man?
2001. Was the first year.
Okay.
So I met a bunch of burners up in Seattle and then like promptly left.
Yeah.
And I was like, see you guys.
Yeah.
And then I just kind of fell in with different crowds in Phoenix and wasn't really involved in the burner world very much there. I did meet a couple people, a couple who are still, good friends, but it wasn't until I moved to San Diego that I really got into the whole burner world. And
what happened in San Diego? What was the catalyst? What was your first experience with the burn community here?
First experience, I guess, would have been meeting all of the social group that Amy Wright was hanging out with. Do you know Amy?
I believe so, yeah.
So
listeners may not, though.
Yeah. Amy Wright was camping at the same camp that I went to in 2001. So DM and I came from Seattle. We traded a couple of utility-kilts for tickets, and then these guys invited us to stay with them.
What was the camp?
It's called Camp Coup d'Etat.
Okay.
And it was an epic camp and epic year, and I don't use that word lightly. They were positioned right on the corner of Esplanade and Center Camp.
Oof.
So like heart of the event.
Good Lord.
And this is in 2001, where there's like probably 25,000 people or something.
Right.
So a lot smaller, a little bit more, not quite as like grown up of an event or whatever, but
not as many blinky lights.
Not as many. Well, still a lot of blinky lights, especially for that time. But so Amy Wright was camped with those guys, and so I met her, and like we hung out a little bit, but she was more an acquaintance. And then I was part of an email group, and she was on that email group as well. And
this is
I told everybody I was coming to pre-Facebook. Told everybody I was moving to San Diego, and she's like, "Oh well, when you get here, let me know." And so she totally hooked me into the Burning Man crowd. She started off with she was doing like what's that show, Twin Peaks?
Yeah.
Every Thursday or something like that at her house, we would go, and there'd be like 15 or 20 people who would just show up and we'll all watch like Twin Peaks together.
Nice.
And I actually hate Twin Peaks. I'm totally not a fan.
Yeah.
But
it's fun to be around.
But I love being around the crew and around people, and just like felt like, a little bit of a community. So
I think if burners watched, I don't know, Chargers, I might go watch it.
Yeah.
I could not care less, but that would still suck me in somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
we do everything pretty special.
Yeah. Somehow there will be some sort of interesting cake or something, like something about it will amuse me. But, so you're hanging around the crowd, you're getting to know people. What's going on in the burn community, in that time in San Diego? There's no regional yet, obviously.
No regional, but there was Elysium, and Elysium, was, very similar to a regional. And it was a great event, and that was the first real burner event that I went to outside of Burning Man.
Really?
Or no, actually, I guess there was Toast.
Yeah. How many people were at Elysium?
it was all of Area 7. So I'm not sure how many people you could fit in there. Probably
Area 7 at the La Jolla campgrounds?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So you said 500?
Probably 500 or 600.
Okay.
Like
so it's significantly larger than Toast.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And significantly better art and cool people and yeah, that was my first like exposure to like the full like Burning Man crowd here in San Diego. And then from there, I had volunteered with Burners Without Borders before it was actually Burners Without Borders. So in 2006.
So, okay.
2006? When did Hurricane Katrina?
It might have been 2006. Because that's sort of when Burners Without Borders became official.
Yeah. No, it wasn't 2006. It must have been 2005. Because I moved here in 2006. And it was over Thanksgiving that I was in Louisiana. So we went down there and with my painting skills, we were basically like rebuilding this Buddhist temple for this community that had been completely destroyed on the day that it was inaugurated. So they just built this brand new building and they're having the party to like celebrate the new building. And this giant wave and storm comes in and the storm picks up the building and like filled it up with water all the way up into like the rafters. People were like up in the like attic of the building just like to ride out the storm. So it destroyed the building. We rebuilt the building. I got there right about the time that it was ready to be painted on the inside. So I painted this entire church with help from some people. But then I was only able to be there for about 2 weeks. So I took off after that, and
you could only give 2 weeks of your time to volunteer painting work.
Well, there were people who were out there for months.
And
that's where Burners Without Borders started. So after we finished that temple, they went into Pearlington area and they did a bunch of work up there. But I was struck by that experience, and the 30 or so burners that were there totally had this like just awesome community and nightly bonfires, and you know, they would work so hard and give so much of themselves to these people, and they were literally like saving, well, I can't say saving lives, but saving people's lives, you know what I mean? Like their financial lives and their family lives. And by recreating this community center, they saved this whole community, because then everybody else was motivated. Okay, well, we still have the church, you know, that's coming back, so let's rebuild our house rather than just like moving out or whatever. So it was a really cool experience, and I wanted to continue supporting Burners Without Borders after I moved here to San Diego, but I was starting my business and I couldn't just like pick up and leave, you know, for weeks at a time anymore. So I got the idea that I could throw a fundraiser for them. And it's funny because every time I have what I think is a really good idea, I get this like welling up of like energy inside of me, you know, and I can just like barely even breathe because I'm like so excited about like this new idea that I have. And this happened to me at like 2:00 in the morning. So I'm laying in bed and trying to sleep, and I'm like, oh, and I can like barely breathe because I'm just like so excited about the like idea of throwing this fundraiser for Burners Without Borders. So I
what was your idea of the fundraiser?
It was just really simple, just like a party. You know, just like try to get a whole bunch of people to come. And then it evolved into a little bit more than that. I talked with Gage, who used to have that warehouse down in the Barrio Logan. And that was kind of like my big like test, you know, like if Gage says that we can do it at his warehouse, then it's on. If he says no, then, you know, maybe whatever happens with it. But he was all about it. He totally supported me, told me that he'd give me the warehouse for free. And so then that just made me even more like excited. So I just poured all my energy into organizing this party, and it went really good.
Did it have a theme?
Yeah, the first one was called Border Town. Storm, Nivik Storm
Yeah.
from the Black Company. He helped make the flyer for it.
He's been on the show, yeah.
Okay, cool. A couple of the other regionals at the time like helped with some promotion and stuff, and we basically just got like, you know, a lot of people involved, and we ended up making like $3,500 or something like that.
Oh, nice.
So it was a pretty good chunk of money that I was able to write a check and send it up to Burners Without Borders, and then that went well, and so then I was, you know, motivated. Well, why don't we do another one?
Yeah.
And so we did another one. Valentine's Day Massacreade is what we called. That one went even better. And then we did another one. It was like the farewell party for Soul in the Machine. And as well as like a Burners Without Borders fundraiser.
Soul in the Machine?
Soul in the Machine
is...
Soul in the Machine is headed by a guy named Henry Chang. He used to live in San Diego. I think he lives in Las Vegas now. But he makes these like super awesome, crazy, twisted, all metal art cars. I'm sure you've seen pictures of them.
Right.
You would totally recognize if I showed you a picture. But Soul in the Machine was this awesome band setup that had like a laser harp. So like all the strings in the harp were lasers, and so you break the laser and it plays a sound and stuff like that. So like super cutting edge and just really cool. That was a blowout party. Like we made like $10,000 or something.
Wow.
At that party. And
that all went to Burners Without Borders.
It all went to Burners Without Borders.
That's fucking awesome.
And in fact, that actually kickstarted a program that they started, which was like handing out like mini grants to people who wanted to do stuff in the community.
Right.
So we did another one after that, but then what happened? Then YOUtopia. Well, it wasn't called YOUtopia then; it was called DCOM, and
it wasn't an official regional yet.
Yeah, it was like a camp out party.
Right.
You know, there was like a stage, and a little bit of art and stuff, and it was really cool for what it was. And I had gone to DCOM in 2009 to promote for my Burners Without Borders stuff. And that was like, you know, another exposure beyond Elysium that I had to the whole community. And so I'm kind of slowly starting to get tugged in, you know, to the bigger, broader community with all this stuff. And in 2011, there was nobody who wanted to like step up to lead DCOM. So it kind of looked like it wasn't going to happen.
Really?
And then Natural decided that he was going to lead it because he wanted to get married at DCOM.
Yeah.
So
so let's bounce back to that. Natural's been on the show previously.
Okay.
So how did you meet Natural? You guys have been working together on stuff for quite some time.
Oh, you know, I met him at DCOM.
Okay.
In 2009.
Okay.
Yeah. I was passing out flyers.
Yeah.
Which is kind of like, you know, passing out flyers at a burner event.
Yeah, yeah.
People are looking at me like, who is this guy?
Yeah.
You know.
Are you familiar with the principles? Yeah.
But I was like, no, it's for Burning Man. It's Burners Without Borders.
Yeah.
You know, I'm throwing a party. It's a fundraiser.
Yeah. So,
you know.
So you met Astral there. Okay.
So I met him there, and they took a flyer, and then they took a whole stack of flyers, and he and Jade started passing out flyers with me. So they were cool.
Nice. We
hung out a little bit there. But then he got involved in helping me throw the Burners Without Borders events. He helped with the last two that I did.
Yeah.
So that's how I got to know him.
So back to 2011.
2011, he wanted to get married at the event, and he didn't want the event not to happen.
Yeah.
So then he's like, well, I guess I'll throw it.
Okay.
So then we're at Amy Wright's house.
Yeah.
We're watching, we're beyond Twin Peaks at this point. We're watching some other show, I don't remember. But he's like, hey, so John Ray, you want to help me throw DCOM? And I'm like, I don't know anything about throwing a festival. I've only ever gone to like a few festivals. And so I told him no.
But he's looking at your experience, you know, throwing these parties, and he's like, all right, here's a guy that knows how to organize a thing.
And he and I become pretty good friends through doing all of that and everything.
And how many days was DCOM back then?
I think it was like a Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we turned it into a 4-day event when we took over.
Okay. So you took over?
So we took over.
Well, hold on. Yeah, first you said no, you don't want to.
Yeah. So I told him that I didn't want to. It was too intimidating, too scary. You know, fear was allowing me to make my decision. So, but I thought about it for a while, and then probably like a week later, I told him that I'd help him.
Yeah. Okay.
So I stepped in and I went to the first meeting, not really knowing anybody. That was the first time I met like Dag and Nicole Hickman and some of the other people who have been like big contributors to the community here for a long time.
Yeah.
And we somehow pulled it off. It went from 600 people to we had 1,280 people.
Wow.
In the first year that we took it over.
Wow.
So we just brought a level of organization that I don't think was there before. And by being just a little bit more organized, like distributing tasks, a little bit more delegating, stuff like that. Just a lot of people just started like jumping on and wanting to be a part of it. And
how many people are you dealing with in your business at this point?
What do you mean?
Like, the different crews working under you, correct?
Well, that's a little bit complicated. So I'm
just trying to find like the cross section of experience,
sure,
delegating and organizing people.
So I'll just be brief about that point. I changed the nature of my business, so I don't have any employees anymore. I basically subcontract out everything that I produce now.
Nice.
And so I don't have any like direct employees anymore. At the height of my business, there were about 30 people involved as employees, managers, salesmen, stuff like that.
Yeah. Okay. So you have multiple layers of experience with different groups of people managing humans. That's the part
sort of.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So when you were saying like that there's a certain level of organization and everything that you brought that sort of wasn't there before, what do you attribute that to? Do you think it's partly your own personal experience, or did you guys take a different approach to it than previously what people had been doing with ADCOM in general?
Well, I don't really know how it was organized before, because I wasn't really a part of it before. But from what everybody tells me, we brought kind of like a level of professionalism that wasn't there before. You know, we would drink beers at the meetings, but it would be like after the meeting that we would be like, you know, drinking or, and we would, we brought like a infrastructure, like for lack of a better word, kind of like a hierarchy of how to organize the event that didn't really exist before either. Right. So I think that just adding some of that like baseline architecture or infrastructure to the event about how it could run and how it could be organized with different departments and stuff like this, we just kind of took it to like a different level. Right. And it's not to say that none of that stuff existed before, because it did. There were different departments and stuff like that, but it just wasn't really, it wasn't taken as seriously, maybe.
Right. I mean, I don't know. Everything we do is built on the backs of people that built before us. I mean, at the end of the day, like, thank you to the people that came before us that made the mistakes that they needed to so that we wouldn't make the same ones. It's the only way to explore. And also, you guys, I mean, the number, you know, increased a lot.
Yeah, quite a bit.
So what went into that decision? You just wanted it to be bigger?
It just kind of happened. I don't think it was a conscious decision. Okay. We weren't like shooting for a goal of let's have 1,200 people or anything like that. It just exploded on us.
Do you think that was to some extent connected to what was happening in burner culture as a whole? There's just more people being attracted to it? Or do you think more people found out about the event?
I think that there was more marketing that was done. Even though there wasn't like the traditional sense of marketing, there was just more people talking about it.
Right.
It probably did get to a point where there's a bit of like a critical mass, where there's like 600 people now who went, and the year before that, I don't know how many, but probably like 400 or something like that.
Right.
So it's just kind of like getting to that point where enough people are going and telling their friends that it's a great time that then all of a sudden,
everybody bring a friend. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So, how does that whole thing go? Like by the time it's over, are you like, oh my God, I never want to do this again? Or you're like, oh, okay, that was not anywhere near as intimidating as I thought it would be?
I was every year after throwing YOUtopia, I go through a phase of like, I don't want to do anything. Leave me alone. I'm not going to answer your emails. But
thank you for answering mine.
Well, this year it was only like 4 or 5 days that I was that way.
Yeah. Nice.
But yeah, I definitely, was exhausted from doing it that first year. Mainly because we had to figure everything out. Like there was some procedures and there was some body of knowledge in some of the people who had thrown or helped thrown it the year before. But we argued and analyzed and tried to figure out the best way to do pretty much everything, like down to like, how do we do ticket sales? Like, do we do this online or do we just like have people PayPal me or and then like, does everybody buy a ticket or do some people get a free ticket because they're volunteering? Well, if that guy gets a free ticket, then why doesn't that guy get a free ticket? And so we just like had these meetings in my living room where we would just like argue this stuff out and argue. We'd spend 2 hours and maybe get 3/4 of the way through like one topic.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was like that again the second year too. So it was just a lot of like figuring out what YOUtopia was going to be. And
was it YOUtopia at that point?
It became YOUtopia the second year, 2012, that I was involved.
What went into the decision for it to become YOUtopia, to get that name?
Because DCOMs are typically a one-day event. They're not an overnight event. And we were making it, it already was like a 3-day event. We decided to extend it to Thursday. So it was a 4-day event, and it really fit the mold of a regional event a lot more than the mold of a DCOM.
Right.
And also I think that, calling it a regional event probably changes things in people's mind a little bit. And that probably, contributed to the growth of the event, because then people were like, oh no, this is like a regional event. This isn't just like a DCOM. Did
you have to go through a process with Burning Man org at that time in order to change the name?
Yeah. Or no, because before we didn't have any affiliation with them. I think it was 2011 that we actually like talked to them and got like official status and stuff like that.
So anybody at that time, I don't think they can do this now, but I feel so at that time you could just throw an event and call it a DCOM.
Yeah, I think so. It's the wild, wild west.
Yeah. I don't know the details of it, but I've been told you can't do that now. There's some stipulations on it, some things you got to go through in order to be considered a DCOM or a regional, but So the first year that it was YOUtopia you did have communication with them to become an official regional?
Yeah, that was handled by the regional contacts, which I believe was Nicole Hickman at the time. I don't know. I might be remembering that wrong. Yeah. It might have even been like 2012 before we actually became like official.
Right. Was there a discussion about like the advantages to be considered a regional as opposed to just continuing to do what you do?
Not that I recall.
It's just like, fuck it, this will be fun.
Yeah, I was pretty focused. My role was to like organize the party, the event, and the regional contacts who I believe were Nicole and Brady. I think that Storm wasn't at that time anymore. I think they were the ones who kind of handled the, like, get the official Burning Man designation side of things.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure I've actually gotten these questions answered when they've been on the show. I just don't remember because it's been so long.
Yeah.
And also because listeners. So now you're official regional. Did you feel a shift in the amount of responsibility, or was it like just continuing basically the same kind of event you were building?
Yeah, it was more just like a technicality in my mind. You know, it was, I've always been about the San Diego community, and that's why I do it. And it's cool that it's like Burning Man, and it's cool that we have this regional status and everything, but I don't do it for the prestige of that or anything. I do it because it's this amazing gift that all of my friends like give to, and we all have this like central thing called YOUtopia that we all like give our time and energy and direct all of our time and energy toward, and that's what it's always been about for me. So yeah. This I mean, YOUtopia was what brought me into the community. Yeah, it was before Burning Man, and I on this last YOUtopia, which we're going to get into shortly, incredibly smooth YOUtopia. It was at one point, just through a series of random coincidences, I ended up at a midnight champagne popping of our friends Greg and Joel had met at YOUtopia 3 or 4 years prior, the same year that was my first year. And so here are these two amazing people that are friends of mine who I always thought they'd been around way longer, like they'd been together way longer, but it turns out that they actually met at my first YOUtopia, and it's crazy. Like there's so many, awesome.
So many of these stories are connected. There's so many life-shifting events that have happened at YOUtopia.
That's what I love about it. Yeah.
It's crazy. Like,
it's the connections that we all get there. Like, you're not going to be on your deathbed wishing you had worked at the office a little bit harder. You know? You're not going to be like wishing that you had like, you know, bought 2 Ferraris instead of just the one. Like, the only thing that people regret, or one of the biggest things that people regret when they're on their deathbed, is like not having enough interpersonal connection in their lives. So that's what draws me to it, is that there's so many opportunities and so many stories of people who, like, you know, had a life change by going to one of these events because they were swimming out in the world, like feeling like it was them against everybody. And then you realize that there's communities out there and that you can be a part of a community, and then the relationships and the friendships, the marriages, the everything that you get out of it is what I think is the basis for why I continue to work on it.
Yeah, it's pretty nuts. There's been more, I mean, I can't even wrap my brain around it. Like the amount of life shifts that have happened. I'm trying to imagine if I was in that position. It's crazy. Yeah.
It totally changed my life. You know? Yeah. Like, you know, I was just what I just described. I was like me against the world, and I like had moved to San Diego and I didn't know anybody. And then I kind of got drawn into this little sub-circle, you know, of the bigger picture. And then, just kept getting drawn in more and more into like the bigger picture, and I found a community. I found all of my friends, or not all, but you know, the majority of my friends through the YOUtopia community, and it's totally changed my life.
Burner Podcast.
Hey, are you in, around, or planning to be in San Diego? You want to build art or host a community meeting or some such shit? You can do it at Colab. It's that thing we don't shut the fuck up about on this show. Colab is a collaborative workspace created to build community by providing a useful and comfortable place to hold meetings, organize events, and build art projects. I lifted that from the website. Visit sdcolab.org for more information. That's sdcolab, SD like San Diego, collab like the first half of collaboration, .org. Now back to the show.
Welcome home.
So that was second year. How many years after that did you continue to co-lead?
Well, I did 2011, 2012. Those were the first 2 years that Natural and I ran YOUtopia together. And then in 2013, I was the president of the board, but I wasn't the event lead anymore. I stepped down so that a couple of the people could experience that leadership role and, do what they could with the event and hopefully evolve it to the next level, which they did. And
did you have to fight the urge to get more involved, or was it pretty easy to?
It was a nice transition, actually, because being the president, I still was in on everything, but I didn't actually have to make most of the decisions. Right. So I got to see what was going on still, and I got to give input, and I was approached a lot for advice and stuff like that. So it was a pretty cool transition out.
Was there any changes that came after you took the president role that were I never even thought of that, but there's a new direction. Was there an example you can think of?
The from a logistical standpoint, one of the biggest changes that I didn't really see coming and that I really didn't think was going to work out, and that it really didn't work out the first year, but then after that it worked out really good, was the whole parking lot and telling everybody that they had to park their cars in the parking lot and then shuttle in. So
interesting. Okay,
just logistical.
So everybody used to park by their tents.
Yeah. The whole you just pull up and park your car and tent, camp next to it or whatever. But then for space reasons, the leads after Natural and I in 2014 decided that they needed to get all the cars up into the parking lot. So that was the shuttle gate year when everything got messed up at the gate, and it was one of those unfortunate things. I think there's still misunderstanding about why that happened, but the main reasons that happened is because the power didn't show up for until 2 days after it was supposed to. So everything was way behind because of that. And, and then maybe there could have been a little bit more attention paid to what was going on in the moment.
Yeah.
But, when you're organizing an event, there's 100 things going on all at the same time. It's pretty easy to lose track of how long the line is getting or whatever. So I don't think there's anybody really to blame for that incident or for that event. But it was a really good learning experience. And then the next year, came back in 2015 and they did it again and it worked beautifully. And it worked exactly how it was supposed to and how the architects had designed it to work from 2014, but then it actually did work in 2015. So, and then of course we just pretty much copied what they did in 2015 for 2016.
Wow, that's crazy. I mean I was there the year before Shuttlegate. That was my first YOUtopia. But I don't remember what it looked like with all the cars.
It was pretty crammed, and we got some heat from the fire department because there were a couple places where the cars were too close together and fire trucks were having a hard time squeezing through. And so it was a safety concern, logistical concern, an aesthetic concern, because it's, you don't want a whole bunch of cars around. It ends up being looking like a parking lot. And so it was a good call, and the leads from 2014 made the right decision.
Yeah. When did Colab come into the picture? When was that idea born? Because I'm imagining you that thing you were describing with you get the idea and now you can't sleep.
Yep.
And now you're on.
Yep, that happened. Yep. Colab was an idea that had been kicked around for a while. It wasn't my idea. It was something that people have been talking about, and in 2013, after I was president of the board, my term was up, and so I decided not to run for the board again, and that I was just gonna take it easy and not do anything and just soak it in for a little while. But then I got this idea, and so one of the last meetings that I was the president of the board, I presented the idea with like actual like satellite photos and rent numbers and a budget and like all of this stuff to the board, and everybody approved it like right there in one meeting. So, so it was kind of like my last thing to do as president of the board was to like okay Colab to get it going, and then I spent the next 2 years, 14 and 15, just building up Colab and getting that, set.
Did you have a model in place for Colab, or were you
Yeah, sort of.
on a whim?
I had an idea in my head, and then I talked with the other co-founders, Natural, Brandy Madalena, Meg King, and Amy
Volker?
oh, I can't remember her last name right now. Amy Sheridan. Yeah. Sorry, Amy.
It's okay. I forgot it too.
Amy Sheridan. So the five of us all started Colab, and we didn't really know exactly what we wanted it to be. We just knew that it would be a good thing to have like a space. And so we were very open, and we just started telling everybody that we've got this space. What do you want to do with it? And then it just kind of evolved into what it is now. So
the space is it correct that it was your previous painting space?
Yeah, it used to be my warehouse for paint green.
Okay.
It's where we kept all of our equipment, and we would do like some cabinetry work there and stuff like that.
Did you move to another warehouse space, or do you just no longer need it now?
Nope, just no longer needed it.
Okay.
Because of the changes that I made to my business.
Right. Okay. And then so you start to build that up, and at this time you're no longer on the board, but you're working with getting Colab going.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so the last thing that I did while I was on the board is like give myself this giant job to do for the next few years.
Yeah.
So yeah, we started Colab we at first we thought it would be like a really big build space. Like we're gonna have tons of artists coming in, and they're gonna build awesome stuff for YOUtopia. And that has happened, but it hasn't been the focus of what Colab is. So it's really cool having the builds going on. Like you guys built the Cabinet Zero right there. The temple for YOUtopia this year was built there, previous years as well. So there's been a lot of art that's been built there. But what we found to actually be the main purpose or main focus that the community has used Colab for is as a community space.
Right. So
we allow anybody to use it for free, as long as it's like a community oriented project. As far as for like meeting space, build space is a little bit different. We do charge a little bit for that just because if you don't, people don't respect it, stuff like that. So, so it's really become a space for people to like come and hold a meeting or have their like, theme camp meetings, theme camp fundraisers. We've started doing the weekly social things or bi-weekly social things down there. Every Thursday night is the Colab and Chill. And then the board holds their meetings there. We have our meetings. There's several different community groups who hold meetings there on a regular basis. So it's not being utilized how we originally thought it might be, as much with build spaces or build projects going on, but we also have really developed it in that direction. So we've got the Sol Diego laser that Paul Williamson is running and donated, and he's been like the total model of who we want in there. Paul has been great. He's, brought in this awesome piece of equipment, set it up and runs it and takes care of all the maintenance, and he teaches people how to use it, and he gets people involved, and like, I don't know what we're averaging right now, but probably like once a month, there's like another laser class where there's, several people who come down and just learn the basic functions of the laser.
Wow.
And every time we have one of those classes, then there's, several more people who are like want to be users of the laser.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
It's getting to the point where like the laser is not 100% booked, but it's getting pretty busy. And then we have the CNC router that we just got. We used to have a glass shop. We've got all the equipment for a welding shop, metal shop. There's the U-Brew, so beer brewing facility where people can come down and learn how to brew their own beer, and then they get to take it home and drink it.
Yeah. That's what you should have brought tonight.
Yeah, should have. I drank all mine at YOUtopia though. So it's cool that it's like going in that direction, and that's definitely like a unique aspect of what's going on, because any random day you can go down there and there might be somebody building some cool project.
Right. And you said that you charge for build space because if you didn't, people wouldn't respect it. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, it's just like, if you give somebody something for free, they don't value it as much.
Right.
So the build space is very inexpensive, but we do charge people for it because then they don't just leave their stuff all over the place. They don't decide, oh, well, the project isn't really going how I thought, I'm just done with it.
Yeah.
And then like leave it all over us.
Yeah.
There's deposits that they have to put down and monthly fees and stuff like that, so that they just respect the space and don't take advantage of us.
The funding for Colab comes from predominantly
YOUtopia.
Yeah. That's interesting.
100%. Well, not quite 100 because we do get a little bit of rental income.
Right.
But
right. Okay. So then you're building up Colab, and then business is going fine. You've got the contracting thing going on. San Diego, you've built up this community. What has been like the, what we're going to do just a second. So this year you get back into co-lead as YOUtopia again.
Yeah.
Okay. And you kind of came in sort of late in the game. How did the timing on that play out when you came in?
Well, there were two guys who were the leads last year. They were expected to do it again this year. It didn't work out for one of those guys to be able to come back as a lead. And so I think it was end of February, maybe around March, that the board approached me and asked me to step in for him.
Right.
So I didn't have to think too hard about it. Actually, it sounded like a really cool opportunity. So yeah, I jumped in and had a little bit of a late start, but I wouldn't say it was detrimental. Well, actually, one of the at the end of this year's YOUtopia, we asked all of the leads to give us feedback, and one of the consistent things that we heard across the board is that we need to do, as producers, a little bit better job of choosing who our department leads are. And that's one of the things that we kind of like rushed through at the beginning of this year. And it's interesting to say that now because we didn't really rush through it at the time.
I mean, like, how do you answer that kind of a concern? Because it's like, okay, well, we chose this person. They're like, well, can you choose better? Like, how does that play out?
Well, yeah. So we got really lucky this year in that we had really high quality people who wanted to be involved. Right. And I think that we can make that luck even better by trying to engage more people to get involved. So we had more spots than people interested in taking on a spot. So we, were bound a little bit by that. And my goal, is to not be in that situation again, but to have more people than spots. So by doing that, then it changes the dynamic a lot.
How do you make that happen?
That's a good question. That's what I'm trying to figure out.
Yeah.
I think probably personal like relationships, you know, like talking with people and trying to get people involved. I mean, there would be a great spot in the media team that you could have a big impact on.
Put me on the
Utopia.
spot on the show. All right.
But yeah, you know, one-on-one conversations and stuff probably go a long way. But then also, I think that by having like a really cohesive team and by people seeing that we're all like friends and we're all getting along will make people want to like kind of be a part of our group, you know?
Yeah, because I mean, like that's one of the interesting things. Like I'm curious about how some of these dynamics played out. I was art curation co-lead a couple of years ago.
Okay.
I mean, I was completely worthless.
What year was that?
Oh gosh, 2000. Was it 14?
Okay.
I guess it was 14.
The Shuttlegate year.
Yeah, I think so. Yes, it was, because I know at one point I was stationed at the corner of Dark and Where the Fuck Am I?
Yeah.
Like directing traffic, and like that's like one of those things where I was looked at like lead culture.
Yeah.
And it didn't line up with the way that my productivity practices operate. Sure. And like that's one of the things I was going to ask is like, you know, like in that you do have this very Zen sort of, you know, personality type, and yet it felt like, and mind you, again, at that time I was watching it only from my own little corner. It felt like there was definitely a culture amongst a lot of leads, which was this very like, I'm working the entire time I'm here. I am not taking a minute off.
Yeah.
It just looked stressful.
Yeah.
Constantly. And I realized part of that for me, I was watching it. I'm like, well, you know what? Like, my experience has been that when you're applying this level of stress to something, being that I've been in a lot of leadership positions as well, you're into that stress. You like it. It's exciting to feel the excitement of the stress. And I think it gets very addicting. And I think that some of the experiences that I've had have been that people will shy away from those positions as a result. All that said, my observation has also been in a lot of these kind of situations that we kind of need people like that, especially like in a kind of like earlier stages growing event. That's been the observation I've had. You've been around obviously a whole hell of a lot longer, so I want your input on this. People that really are super into it, you know, at that level where like they really don't want to take the time off. And I don't remember who it was that said this to me, but it made a lot of sense. They're like, if you think about like logistics and leads as like their own theme camp, all of it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Because if that's your theme camp, you're like, yeah, I want to do that shit all fucking day. That's what I do.
Yeah.
You know, rather than just like, I'm clocking into work, I'm working for these hours, and now I'm clocked off.
It's the coolest theme camp out there because our theme is Utopia.
Yeah. Yeah. But you're working but if you're into that, that's one thing. I'm very much into like delegating time and like, this is the time, I'm off. Radio's off, I'm out of here. But all the rest of your friends are busting their ass, and like you feel like an asshole leaving, you know?
No, yeah, I think you're right, and I think that has been a big part of the lead culture of Utopia, up until now.
Yeah. Up until this year?
Well, even this year there was definitely a lot of that, and that, you know, like people working 20-hour shifts and stuff like that. And I don't think that's a bad thing at all. But I do think that we would have,
because I can tell you this, the 20-hour shift thing, most of the people that I've watched do that, they're loving it.
Yeah.
You know, and like
they complain about it, but they're actually loving it.
The complaint is like part of the culture.
Yeah.
I don't.
You only work 20 hours. I work 22 hours.
Yeah. No, that's like part of the fun of it. Like that's become like part of the culture. I'm not into that.
Yeah.
Personally. But you know, I wonder if like that scares off sometimes people from getting into it, because like they'll hear it and they'll take it. An example, you know, it is like snarky burner culture. Like we are shit talkers. Like, you know, you talk shit about this thing, and that's a part of it. You're going to rage quit. You're going to say, fuck all this bullshit. But like in reality, like that's part of your goofy fun. Yeah. And if somebody doesn't know what they're looking at, it looks like, you know, a couple of brothers are beating each other up, and it looks like they're actually fighting if you've never had a brother before. Yeah. But they're not.
Yeah, there's definitely that dynamic. I think, though, that I think that 2017 is going to be a big year for the organizer theme camp of YOUtopia, because I think that we're going to have a lot more people who want to be involved than we have in previous years.
Right.
So by having a lot more people involved, that will distribute the load of work quite a bit more, and we'll get people. We've also evolved now in the event to the point where we already know how to do ticketing. You know, like the example that I gave earlier, we don't have to have all these arguments about like, well, how do we do ticketing or anything like that, because we already know how we do it.
Right.
And
I would imagine part of that is also like better archiving of this knowledge.
Yep. That's one of the things that I was working on this morning was starting to write the like how to do YOUtopia manual, because we don't have anything like written down that's like our standard operating procedures or anything like that. So there's a lot of reinventing the wheel each year.
How to YOUtopia.
Yeah. Howtopia.
Howtopia. There you go.
So by having the SOPs, by having our manual, our Howtopia manual, that will relieve a lot of the stress of having to figure stuff out. Because like if you're leading a department like say city planning, you don't have to rely on anything other than the manual. You know, you have this like documented thing. Okay, well, this is my timeline. I know that by May I'm supposed to do this and have this finished, and I know that by June I'm supposed to have this all finished and completed, and you know, and we'll have checklists involved with it. And so like each month, you know, this is the checklist for this month that I have to do for my department of city planning. So that will remove a lot of that like I'm working 20-hour shifts sort of mentality, and I think it'll allow us to really blossom as an event, because now all of that energy that people have been putting into like reinventing the wheel every year, now they'll be able to put that energy into making things even better, like refining it, making it smoother, coming up with new ideas that are tweaks that we can add to the event that are going to, you know, like add a lot of benefit. And so that's, you know, the SOPs and everything, that's one thing that we've definitely like recognized that we need to have. And there's a lot of work that's being put in currently, like today, that we've been putting into like starting to build this stuff out.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So that's a little bit of that like baseline architecture or infrastructure, you know, that will allow us to build the event to the next level.
What was your biggest challenge this year as YOUtopia co-lead?
I think the biggest challenge was letting go of my expectations and accepting the role for what it was. And what I mean by that is when I was the lead of YOUtopia in 11 and 12, it was really that like, you know, we're building this thing, we're figuring out all this stuff. And that's, you know, I really enjoyed that. And then having stepped away for, you know, like 2 or 3 years, depending on how you look at it. And then coming back, it's like, it was a lot less build energy and a lot less figuring this out energy. And it was a lot more relationship management and making sure that people were playing nice and getting along with each other. And, you know, there were like real issues that people were having with each other. And you know, sometimes I felt like I was like a counselor and I was just having to like listen to people's problems and, okay, well, I understand. And, you know, let me, you know, can you see how this person could see it from a little bit different angle and how maybe, you know, what you're saying is not really lining up with what they're saying, and how can we make this work better? So it was a lot of more kind of like management energy that I had to put into it rather than like entrepreneur energy. Right. You know? And so once I once I realized that and I accepted how it was, then I actually like really got into it and really started enjoying it. Which I think is true in almost all of life.
Right.
Having expectations is what sets you up for failure.
Yeah. Because we're at 3,000 people, right? That's the cap.
Yeah.
We sell out
3,200.
3,200.
We did not sell out. No.
How far under were we?
About 300.
Okay.
It's like 284 under selling out.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, okay. And that's the same number as the year before as well?
No, last year was 3,000 people. And I don't think that it quite sold out last year, or maybe it did sell out, but like not quite everybody showed up.
Right.
It was the same. It was almost the same exact population this year as it was last year.
Right.
For a couple of reasons. I think, there was a full moon at YOUtopia this year. And then there's that other festival, the Moon Tribe.
Yeah.
At the same time. So I know that we lost, a couple hundred people from that. Plus the Do Lab put on their Dirty Bird campground or camp out the weekend before YOUtopia.
Was it before?
Yeah.
Okay. So a lot of people were beaten up.
So yeah. But you know what? I think that I have to be careful what I say. But I think that a lot of the like party people went to Dirty Bird, and then what we ended up with at YOUtopia was more of the Burning Man family. So I think that probably had a lot to do with contributing to how smoothly and how great everything went at YOUtopia this year. So.
What has been the biggest change that you've observed in the community in all the time that you've been in San Diego? In general, actually, even since Seattle. But and I'm wondering, like, what you're seeing at YOUtopia versus in the community as a whole. Like, what has been the biggest evolutions? What has been the changes?
Well, that is a good question. I think some of the biggest changes that I've seen is in the size and scope of collaboration that's happening amongst different groups within the community. So, like, I've watched many groups evolve and grow and just do awesome things. One of the first that comes to mind is like the Monarch guys. 2011 was the first year I was involved, and it was also the first year that they got involved. And there were a few guys who were like the core Monarch people, and they put together a stage that had a lot of heart in it, and you could tell that they got it. They got the vibe and they got the family aspect of YOUtopia, the community side of it. And then every year they've come back since, and every year they just like up their game. Every year is like a whole step up above what they did the previous year.
Right.
The temple is another example. It's I don't think we even had a temple the first couple of years that I was involved, and then a group put together a temple that was pretty bare bones, but it was kind of like the start. They were trying to start off like, let's do a temple at YOUtopia, so here we go, and then that set the bar. And then the next year, somebody else came out and built the temple, and that set the bar a little bit higher. And then this last year, the temple was just like mind blowing.
Yeah.
So awesome. And being one of the managers of Colab, I was pretty involved with, I got to watch the temple be built down at Colab and be cut out. And I saw the amount of effort and work that these guys all put into it. And it was a really big team that went down there and were working on the CNC router, probably not every day, but many of the days of the week they were down there. And so I've just seen the community grow from, being a camp out to now it's like this awesome full-on festival that has amazing artwork that's made for it. Like the temple was made for YOUtopia. Or for his fiance, whichever way.
Yeah. Oh, he didn't mention that. That was our last episode.
Was it?
I have to go back and bug him about that.
Yeah, she's the muse.
Yeah, that's beautiful. What about just in the culture of the community as a whole in San Diego?
The culture?
Yeah. What shifts have you observed?
I don't know. That's a hard one for me to answer. I'm more of like an introvert, and so I don't really go to all the things.
Yeah, you're one of those guys I don't really see at parties very often.
Yeah, I don't really party.
Yeah. Thanks for basically being around to work and bring us YOUtopia.
Yeah. Well, I get so much more out of YOUtopia than what I put into it, but.
I remember at one point I ran into you and I was like, "How's it going?" And you're like, "I'm kind of bored. Nothing's going on.
Yeah,
everything's too smooth."
Yeah.
Guess be careful what you wish for, though.
Yeah.
that could blow up in your face very quickly.
Yeah. Things were so smooth, the production wise this year, YOUtopia. There were times where I would realize that like a few hours had passed and I hadn't heard anything on my radio.
Yeah.
I like key my radio and I'm just like, radio check. And somebody calls back and they're like, radio's good. I'm like, oh, okay, well, yeah, I guess things are going pretty well.
What are you doing in that time frame? Just hanging out?
Yeah, I spent probably more time than I ever have in past years, just in my camp, around my friends and just hanging out. 1 year on the radio, got my gator right there, ready to go deal with whatever, but the whatever never came. So
that's so funny. So are you going to be involved with YOUtopia again next year?
Yeah, I was just confirmed by the board at their last meeting to be the producer again for 2017.
Is it your same co-lead?
Nope, different co-lead.
Okay. That's right, because it's a 2-year term.
Yeah.
Right.
He hasn't been confirmed by the board yet. He's in process. So he's accepted the nomination to be my co-lead. And that's probably going to be made public to everybody in the next day or two in order to allow people to give a little bit of feedback.
Cool.
And then hopefully at the next board meeting, which would be 9 days from now or 8 days from now, then hopefully he'll be confirmed at that point.
Yeah, beautiful. So is this sort of your, are you looking forward to doing more and more YOUtopias? Do you have any new ideas of other things that you're looking to build? You got Colab, you got YOUtopia. I mean, a lot of San Diego is kind of built on handful of people's backs.
I've actually, I got to the point with Colab where I feel like it's good now, There's more that we can do to build it and to make it better. And we need to come up with a better SOP manual for how to run Colab. And there's little things like that to tweak, but
standard operating procedure.
Okay. SOP, standard operating procedures.
Okay, good. I just kind of came up with that in my head.
Yeah. If you work at a company, you have an employee handbook.
Right.
That's all the SOPs right there. It's how to do your job and stuff like that. So I've actually been getting a little bit restless, or I was getting a little bit restless because I kind of felt like Colab was good now, and I wanted to kind of do something new and try to start building something again. But then I was presented the opportunity to run YOUtopia again, and it's just such a cool thing to how could I turn that down?
Yeah.
So I accepted that again, and then that took away my feelings of restlessness because I realized, YOUtopia. We started off, Natural and I back in 11 and 12, we sent it in the direction that we thought was best for it to start going, and then the leads who have run the event for the 3 years after that, built on that and kept it going in that direction. But some of that core infrastructure that supports it all and keeps it up and keeps it from not just crumbling apart and falling apart on itself was starting to lag behind.
Right.
So I saw that, and I saw that if we don't do something to sort of support this and build up some of that infrastructure, it's going to eventually just like implode on itself. So we realize that and are hoping to fix that or not fix it, but to,
pay some
build
attention
some
to
of
it.
that stuff. This coming year.
Have you been back to the burn?
I haven't been to the burn since 2010.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. So 2010. That's not that long ago.
It's before I got involved with YOUtopia.
Yeah. Are you curious to go back?
Yeah, I'll go back eventually. I guess I'm not curious right now. I mean, the burn is amazing, and it's, I would say, like, probably the only thing that I appreciate about the burn that we don't have at YOUtopia is the scale. Because there's 60,000 people compared to 3,000.
Yeah.
So it's 20 times the size.
I think they were at 70 this year.
Okay. So it's 23 times the size of YOUtopia. And so you just get like art, like we get some really awesome stuff at YOUtopia, but you get so much more of it at the burn.
Do you ultimately want to go bigger? Do you want to try to move YOUtopia in that direction?
Well,
So I'd heard in the past rumblings of wanting to keep it at 3,000. Like a lot of the community will say, let's not go bigger because a lot of the raver kids will show up. Like that's what like a lot of people's biggest fear is.
Yeah. I try not to be like directive with it. Kind of like with Colab, how we just like had the space and we're like, okay, guys, what do you want to do with it? You know, and we asked the community and then it's turned into what it is because of how people have started using it. In the same way, I don't think that there should be a drive to get to 10,000 people.
Right.
I don't think there should be a drive for it to be as big as Burning Man. But if it were to go that direction, then it's absolutely our responsibility to properly manage it so that it can grow to that level. So do I want to get all like dominant over it and start marketing and start, like taking out Google AdWords and stuff to try to like grow the population and whatever? No, but if it did grow to like a 10,000 person type of event, then I would be all about it.
Right.
I would be, doing everything that I could to support that level of infrastructure that's needed.
I mean, in my opinion, it's going to be.
Yeah, mine too.
And some of the conversations that I've had at BMorg at HQ, like that's what they see as well.
Yeah.
That their big vision is for the regionals to all get bigger.
Yep, totally.
And that's one of the things that and I realize that's my bias because that's, we shared this opinion, but a lot of times when people outside the community ask about Burning Man, they're like, oh, isn't it gone like too commercial? This and that. I'm like, well, Burning Man's just like, really, it's the one event. It's a big fucking event.
Yeah.
But it's the one event. Like the culture, the community is alive 24 hours a day, 7 days a week throughout the year.
Yeah.
And over at HQ, the feeling that I got from multiple conversations over there has been that the regional network really is like they're watching, like this is what's next.
Yeah, it is. And they keep saying that every time at the Global Leadership Conference. It's like they keep pushing it on like, the regionals is what the next, evolution of Burning Man is. And the regionals need to get bigger and need to get more organized. And they're trying to do a lot of stuff to get us to like be talking and sharing amongst the regionals, and there's like email lists, and there's all sorts of tools that they're coming up with to try to help us in our growth and overcome the issues that we're all coming up. Because when you have like I don't even know how many regionals there are, but say there's 20 in the US, when you have 20 different groups of people who are all kind of experiencing the same thing, it's like, why not learn from each other and learn how to like not experience some of the same problems.
Right.
Don't have to reinvent the wheel for each individual regional event.
Do you observe any of the ways like even for you personally, but even other people around you, ways that this community has affected how they run their businesses and their lives? Like, are you watching the impact of this community in San Diego and how it's impacting San Diego as a whole, for example?
Well, I know how it's impacted me and how I run my business, and it definitely, the way that I treat my customers and the way I treat my employees and everything, it's just like kind of opened me up to a new way of how people can treat each other in any sort of group, you know, whether it's like a little business or whether it's like the whole city or whether it's like, you know, society on that sort of level.
All right.
And that's what I think the Burning Man is, and the culture of Burning Man, which includes YOUtopia, you know, is a great example of, is how to treat other people in a group.
Right.
So with stuff like our consensus decision making and our gift culture and, you know, radical inclusion, like, I mean, just basically all of the principles are like just a great way to treat other people. And it's not this like you versus the world sort of thing. It's like this, you know, we're all in this together.
Right.
We're all one.
Yeah.
As Dr. Bronner's likes to proclaim loudly.
Have you ever observed, like, I mean, like, in your years of experience with the community, have you ever observed like members or people that have tried to build something, or maybe camps that came in, people that came in and they're just like not quite meshing with what this community is? Like, do you feel that there's a responsibility to the community to push them out, or do you think people filter themselves on out?
I've never come across a group of people that I thought was necessary to like push out. There are individuals that I've personally pushed out. But, you know, radical inclusion doesn't mean that you're allowed to be a dick to me and I just have to put up with it. Radical inclusion doesn't mean that we have to allow a rapist into our community. You know, if somebody's not cool and they're doing things that affect other people around them in negative ways, then we don't have to include those people. Yeah. What radical inclusion means is you include people who are different than you. And, you know, there's groups in YOUtopia who definitely don't fit the stereotype of what a burner is or whatever. They like, you know, there's a group that's all about the dark side of the psyche, you know, and they celebrate the snark side of things, or the
miscreants. Yeah.
They like to spit fake blood in people's faces.
Great photos of you covered in fake blood.
I had a great time in the Miscreants bar.
Yeah.
But I totally embrace that because, you know, they're, while they aren't the hippie, lovey, like type of person that most people think of as burners, they still are like, you know, radically inclusive, and they still follow all the principles, and they're still like an awesome group of people. They just, you know, celebrate the little bit darker side of life. Whereas, you know, the love and sunshine hippies are awesome as well in an equal way. But, you know, they just happen to celebrate like the light side of life or whatever. So
that's interesting. Do you have, or have you experienced anything like in this past year that you're working with YOUtopia that you would like to bring back from the earlier days of your involvement? Have there been any shifts that you'd like to move back towards? Or is it all moving pretty much in the direction that you think works best for the community and for the event?
I mean, the only things that I could think of that maybe we would want to revisit are like little logistical things. I think that the overall like direction that the event has gone is great. And the reason it's great is because we're able to give this experience to more and more people every year. And it's one of those things where, like, the more that we give to it, the more we get out of it. And it's almost like an exponential return, where
Right.
you put in like this little bit of amount of energy and everything into it, and what you get back is like a beautiful like community with all sorts of like deep, meaningful relationships. So it's like really like I get all of this, and all I have to do is like go to some meetings and do a little bit of work and email some people and whatever.
Just even that's an experience that I've had with Burning Man as a whole. Is it does very much reflect back to you what you put in.
Yeah,
and that could even be. I want to encourage everybody to be involved and volunteer, but even just how you experience the event is interesting. I think that like I had a few friends that were all in the same circle this year. Say after the event that they felt that it was kind of desolate, and they felt like they felt kind of not involved in a lot of it, and like they felt like there was dark spots. And I remember so I'm listening to this and I'm like, that is not even remotely the experience that I had. Like I commended multiple leads. I was talking to city planning folks about this. Like the layout of the event was amazing. Like there was like no dark spots. I remember the first year I went, there were sections where you'd walk through a bunch of nothing or just a bunch of camps, and like there wouldn't be anything to explore. But this year I felt like no matter what corner I turned, there was something to explore and something to play with.
Yep.
And it was interesting, and I was sort of having this conversation with these two friends, and I wonder if that was because psychologically where I'm at right now in my life versus where they are, or where they happen to be during the weekend, or who knows. Yeah. But for whatever reason, like I felt like it was absolutely magical. Pretty much everybody I've spoken with felt the same way. But then there's a handful of people that I've talked to. They're like, oh, we just felt like it wasn't there, and it wasn't as friendly, and it was more desolate, and we couldn't find anything to do. I'm like, that is so weird. Like it really, it does seem to very much, something about burn culture magnifies that feeling. Wherever you're at in your life and whatever experience you think you're diving into, it's going to really show it right back to you.
Yeah, it is. It's like a mirror, it's like the mirror that makes you bigger or whatever. Yeah. Like you get a reflection back a lot more of whatever it is that you're going through, and it's all your perception. Perception is such a huge dynamic, I guess, of how you experience something. And like somebody could be in a crowded restaurant, pull out a gun and shoot somebody else, and there'll be like 50 people who give you a different description of the person who shot.
Totally.
Like some people will say he's wearing a baseball cap, and some people will say he's not. Some people will say he's wearing like a red blazer, whatever. And it's because they all have different perceptions of it. So you take that same idea and expand it to something like YOUtopia, and you will get like, there's such a wide variety of experiences that you can have out there that whatever you're like tuned into, you'll experience. And so however you're feeling, it will magnify that back to you. And, in my own experience in 2014, I didn't have any responsibilities at all at YOUtopia. I wasn't the president of the board at that point. I wasn't the lead. Wasn't doing anything for the event.
That must have been fucking weird.
Excuse me. Yeah. Yeah, it was kind of weird, but it was also like, I was at a point in my personal life where I just was struggling with a lot of stuff, and it was all reflected back to me. It wasn't a very like enjoyable year for me. I almost left early, and I still had fun, and of course it's great hanging out with friends and whatever, but it definitely was a reflection of what I was going through. It was what I experienced out there, because I was deep in my own head dealing with all of my personal stuff. So I wasn't putting myself out there to like interact with other people and have all of these amazing experiences that you can if you're really like in that mind space.
I totally had that this year.
Yeah.
And possibly even too much. Like there was it was such a high. The whole event was such a high that coming back from YOUtopia and getting back into default world took longer than coming back from the burn.
Yeah.
Definitely kicked my ass way harder.
Yeah, we don't have... There's nothing at Burning Man that you can't get at YOUtopia, except for, like, the scale.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's a lot more of it at Burning Man.
Mm-hmm.
But at YOUtopia, we've got, like, even... I would say there's even more of, like, a sense of community and stuff at YOUtopia than there is at Burning Man because of how small it is and because... it's pretty likely that person that you're about to walk past at YOUtopia, you're also going to see back in the real world. Right. Whereas at Burning Man, it's a lot less likely. But
I'll tell you one thing Burning Man has a lot more of. Dust.
Yeah, that's true. Although you do get pretty dusted out when you're driving around those gators all day. But yeah, not like Burning Man.
No, Burning Man. I took out some socks that I had taken to the burn the other day, and they smelled like laundry detergent. I've washed them, and I smacked them, and dust came out of them. Yeah. That's how fine the dust is.
I haven't been to Burning Man since 2010.
That's insane.
And I still have stuff with dust in it.
Well, it sounds like that's next on the plan. I mean, like, that's where you got to go.
Burning Man?
You got to do a homecoming.
Yeah, maybe. Might be time.
But either way, listen, thank you so much for all the work and everything you've done for the community.
Yeah, thank you.
I mean, it's pretty fucking magical. I mean, I can personally say my life is in a dramatically different place than it was before I discovered this community. And it was very much thanks to YOUtopia, because I wasn't going to make it out to the burn on my own. And it was it's amusing because it's like the past, I don't know, I've been like in my apartment for I think like 3 years or something, and I was filling out application forms for a new place, and I put down like 5 years because I thought I'd been in my apartment for like 5 years because so much has happened in such a short period of time. Yeah. And I had to actually look up the emails and look at when I signed my rental agreement, and I saw, holy shit, it's only been 3 years. That's insane.
Yeah,
how much has been packed. But the amount of work you do, thank you. And I personally appreciate that you don't make it seem like such a chore.
It's not. I love it, and I get so much more out of it than what I put in. Yeah. And hearing people like you say that is, what makes it all worth it.
That's awesome. Well, thank you, Don. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. All right, well, there it is. John Ray. New episodes are up on the first and third Wednesdays of the month. We are on multiple podcasting platforms such as Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, Spreaker, among many others. And we are also on iHeart Radio now. I keep announcing that. I don't know how much of a difference that makes to you, but if you want to listen to the show, it's not that iHeart to find. See what I did there? The Burner Podcast movement is made possible due to the efforts of various contributing producers, as well as our regular staff, which include our network music editor, Navjeet Sarna, who is also the producer of Burner Podcast Presents, Alkaline, our online editor, Tori Massey, Alkaline producer, Amber Rose, contributing producer, Super Suze, recording engineer, Freckle, chief Playa scientist, Ramiro Martinez, special projects manager, Paul McCarthy, executive producer, network executive producer, Meg King, and you, dear listener, amongst many, many other people that are also working to bring you this amazing show. This show's kind of okay, I guess, but to bring you this show. Our intermission music is by Duckman. Check out his music over at duckmansd.bandcamp.com. The Burner Podcast theme song is America's Horse with No Name remix, produced by Joman. Check out his music at soundcloud.com/DJ Joman. So until next time, love and light and all that other crap. Good night.